Hello and welcome to a post-fight review of Anthony Joshua versus Andy Ruiz 2. Fantastic fight, brilliant fight. Look, I understand a lot of people might not actually be satisfied with the way the fight went, in the way that it was a boxing match rather than an all-out war like the first fight. But look, from a purist boxing fan's perspective, I've really enjoyed this fight. Now, from my perspective, from being honest with you, my pre-fight prediction and breakdown and the way I wanted to see the fight go and the way I said AJ should fight, he fought exactly that way. He fought using, obviously he was lighter, and as I said, he has these explosive straight punches that he used to throw on the come-up, which was exactly what he utilised in this fight. If you noticed, he used those straight, fast, ferocious punches to keep Ruiz at distance. Now, another thing that's worth noting, which AJ did a little bit in the last fight, but then sort of got mixed up, it was a strange one. In the Povetkin fight, he was switching between, he was using a low left hand to jab from, which worked very well. Now, against Ruiz in the first fight, he was using a low left hand, but then McCracken in the corner was telling him to keep his hands up. Now, ultimately, when Joshua started keeping his hands up, he was sort of just cuffing around his own head, and it was obscuring his sort of view a bit, and it allowed Andy Ruiz to get those hooks off. By keeping the jab hand lower, the left hand lower, in this fight, he allowed him to box a lot more like Tyson Fury. You can keep that lower left hand relaxed, you can flick the jab up, and you can flick it up from out of the range of view, particularly for the shorter guy in Ruiz. So I was very, very impressed with the boxing, I suppose you could say, masterclass that was put on by Joshua in this, as he boxed really using, I'll be honest, it was the way I think everybody could see you'd want him to box, but whether he had the discipline, whether he could do it, and whether he even had the skill set to do it was a different thing. This is where we need to actually be honest and say, look, I don't think Anthony Joshua is the best heavyweight in the world. I will now hold my hands up and say that. I don't think that for 1 minute. I think Wilder beats him. I think he possibly beats Fury. I know that causes a lot of people won't want to hear that, but look, I for a long time think there is a certain way that Joshua breaks Fury down, and I think in a future video I'll go more in depth about that. But focusing on Joshua, I don't think he's necessarily the best heavyweight in the world. But look, on resume at the moment, you probably have to make him number 1 again now. If not, no worse than number 2. So, Anthony Joshua, as I say, has defeated Andy Ruiz in a very lopsided decision. Now, the way he boxed, as I say, was very, very fluid, very nice. At this point, I think everyone has to admit that Andy Ruiz is now regarded as a world-class front-forward boxer. So if he's a world-class front-foot boxer, and Joshua was able to mitigate him at range on the back foot, Joshua's back foot game, in theory, I think you have to now say is world-class, which is incredible to say. If you told me 5 years ago, not 5 years ago, 5 months ago, 6 months ago, that Joshua was actually world-class on the back foot, I probably would have laughed. Look, Joshua has never shown a back foot game like that, particularly to be able to box and pick off Ruiz the way he did. That was brilliant. So, of the top 3 heavyweights, you have to make Joshua the most versatile, which again, Joshua on the come up, he was a robot, he was stiff, he was this, he was upright, and he was. I'll be the first to admit it, he was. But that version of Joshua that we saw, if he can switch up between the sort of more upright and robotic power puncher that we've seen, and mix it up with the back foot lead punching, I think that is a very good Joshua. Look, I am very, very impressed with what I saw there from Anthony Joshua. Look, whether he beats any some of the top heavyweights, I can't say for certain at this point, but I have to say, Joshua, with the styles that he's managed to incorporate into his arsenal now, I think you have to say he's one of the best there is. Look, as I say, I can't heap enough praise on Anthony Joshua to come back from obviously the first fight. Look, don't get me wrong. In my pre-fight prediction, I said that if it goes to points, which I thought it might well do, and Joshua will win it, it won't be without some really, really hairy moments. And look, the scorecards and the record books will say that it was a UD, but look, there were some very, very nervy moments. Ruiz Jr. was looking for the hook to the solar plexus all night. And look, I'm not saying he landed as clean on Joshua this time, because he didn't. But he did land on Joshua, and Joshua was wobbled at least 3 or 4 times in this fight. Joshua was wobbled a few times. But will this fuel speculation that there was something wrong in the first fight? I think it might do, just because this time I know he didn't take his heavy. He didn't in the first fight. He took one heavy knock to the temple that seemed to just completely scramble him for the rest of the fight. He didn't take anything like this in this fight, but when he got wobbled, he did seem to recover a lot better this time around. His powers of recovery appear to be a lot better. So there will be a few question marks over why that is. As I say, his powers of recovery seem to have sort of got better overnight. Look, as I say, the initial shots that he took from Ruiz were not as hard as the ones he took in the first fight, but nevertheless, he seemed to recover quite well this time round. So that is good to see. That being said, that doesn't come without some worries. Joshua has this tendency when he's hit to put both hands up to cover both temples. Clearly a weak spot for Joshua. And he sort of does this Bambi on ice sort of legs go everywhere, bit of a mess. Against someone like Wilder, look, for me, that's not going to end well. So, look, Joshua still, to me, looks at points defensively a little bit inept. I don't quite like what I see from there in terms of the way to block it. In a way, Joshua may actually be better off adopting a Philly shell, particularly if he's keeping the left hand low, because to be switching between sort of a traditional blocking stance and a low left arm, from an offensive point of view to a defensive point of view, it means you're having to bring both hands up to completely different places. You know, if he's keeping the left hand low and then he's having to bring up the left hand high to block, that is a lot more difficult to do than when you're keeping both hands high for a high guard and you're boxing out of a high guard. Because if you're defending out of a high guard and boxing out of a high guard, that's a lot easier because you don't have to do anywhere near the amount of hand adjustments. Whereas Joshua was trying to box with a low, as I say, with a low sort of sleek left hand, but then having to bring that back up and sort of defending with a high guard. So that's one thing I think he does need to work on, because look, defensively, if he gets caught again, especially on that temple, so maybe even it sounds mad to say Joshua should box out of a Philly shell, but when he's using the left hand, maybe a Philly shell would actually help him. But anyway, moving back onto the fight, Ruiz Jr., look, he had his moments in this fight. I do believe that he was definitely heavier. Look, that one much was clear to see. He looked a lot slower on his feet, slower than he even normally does. Admittedly, Joshua was holding to a point where about midway through the fight, I was starting to think, is this getting excessive? But it wasn't the worst holding I've ever seen. Joshua did hold on the inside. Joshua did not let Ruiz get his hands off on the inside, admittedly. But it didn't quite go to the point where I'd say, yeah, this is illegal. It was still just about within reason, I'd say. So look, I can't have too many problems with the holding that went on. Obviously, a lot of people criticise Joshua and say Joshua ran all night. At the end of the day, he's got the longer arms, he's got the far longer reach, he's more athletically gifted. It made sense to box on the back foot in this fight. Why get stuck in and risk getting in and fighting Ruiz's fight, which is what he did first time around? Because, as we see, if you fight Ruiz's fight, you could well come unstuck. So, look, all in all, as I say, Ruiz, I wouldn't say he was necessarily disappointing. Did he look like he trained as hard? No. Was Ruiz just a flash in the pan? Look, it's difficult to say at this point because we don't know what sort of trajectory Ruiz Jr. is going to go on now. Is he going to go and fight top contenders? Is he just going to be happy to let himself go and sail off into the sunset? I don't know. It really is up to Ruiz Jr. Is he happy now after living the life of the heavyweight champion for 6 months, going back to just being a contender and fighting for smaller purses? I'm not sure he will be. So, yeah, it's interesting to see where Ruiz Jr. goes from here. As I say, I think being a PBC fighter, I would not be surprised if he gets fed to Wilder, and I say fed to Wilder because, look, Wilder likes to box offensively from the outside and from mid-range, whereas Joshua likes to fight offensively from mid to close range, despite being a tall guy. Look, I'm telling you now, if Wilder fights Ruiz, it is going to be Wilder by murder. Ruiz's feet are so slow. Even when he's weighing in the 250s, 260s, weighing in the 280s as he did here, it would be Wilder early, I think, unless Ruiz really tried to jump on Wilder's chest. Now, Wilder, as you've seen from Ortiz, is susceptible to hooks, but Ortiz, is actually quicker on his feet than Ruiz. A fair bit more nimble, a fair bit lighter. Ruiz is a lot slower. So whereas Ortiz can close that distance against Wilder a bit better, Wilder is quick on his feet. Wilder's quite fleet-footed, and if Wilder's got any sense, and I think he's established himself as a good offensive long-range boxer, he should be able to hit Ruiz one of those straight rights. And look, Ruiz, from a defensive point of view, isn't that great. He is quite open, so as I say, I can see if they do decide to make Wilder versus Ruiz, Wilder kills Ruiz. I think I'd go for Wilder within 6 or 7 rounds. Because, as I say, he's nowhere near as a mobile or, even more of a mobile target as Ortiz. So, look, Ruiz Jr., if that's who he goes on to fight, I expect him to lose. But it'll be interesting to see what Ruiz does. Joshua from here. Look, Joshua, this fight in the UK I've never seen anything like it, I thought it was a big fight, I sat around with some of my friends who I suppose you could class as more casual fans, and I don't think any of them were particularly impressed with Joshua, it has to be said. So I'm judging that and saying that I don't think that Joshua's popularity would have grown from this fight at all. In fact, I think if anything, it's probably taken a bit of a hit because it was a negative performance, that has to be said. And obviously, from being the guy who was knocking everyone out, I don't think that's going to win him many fans and might actually turn a few people off him. That being said, it is at least damage limitation, because you would take that over a loss. Because if he takes a loss, I'll tell you what, the casual audience is gone. That's it. No, that gone, done and dusted. So he's at least retained some portion of his fans, I think, Joshua. As I said, the popularity of this in the UK was mental. I went onto my Instagram this morning, just scrolling through my Instagram as I normally do. I have seen people who I have never seen literally even watch boxing, care about boxing. It's on their stories, they're posting about it, and they're tweeting about it, it's on their Snapchats, it's on Facebook. I've never seen anything like it. It's absolutely crazy. As I say, there are people out there who I know have never watched a boxing match in their life that have bought this pay-per-view. So look, I think this has probably done 2 mil. This has probably done crazy numbers, at least 1.5, if not 2 mil. As I say, this looked ostensibly to have done some seriously good numbers. So look, I think Joshua will be happy, Hearn will be happy, Matchroom will be very happy, ending the year again as a 2-time world champion. So I have to say, hats off to Joshua. In terms of where he goes from here, look, I think he'll be matched a lot more carefully going forward. I don't think they'll be taking all these high risks. I think that they will give up the WBO belt to Usyk because, I mean, look, once bitten, twice shy. Usyk, in my eyes, I will be that guy and make a tangible argument and say you could actually, if you turn around to me and say Usyk is the number 1 heavyweight, only having one fight against Witherspoon, you know what? I wouldn't even argue, because Usyk is, I mean, he did what Holyfield did, and did it quicker. He is really, you can make a very tangible argument and say, Usyk is the best cruiserweight that's ever lived. And I would probably have to agree. So, look, if he's the best in his division of all time, and he's come up to heavyweight, it doesn't really matter who he's fought for me. Look, if you want to make him number 1, I'm not gonna argue with that. He was undisputed in his weight class. So, does Joshua want that work? I'm not so sure. I don't know if they will take that fight. It looks like there are already murmurs for Parker. I've always thought that Parker will probably fight for it because Parker's got a very good rapport with the WBO. Will Usyk fight Chisora for it? I think he's got a WBO ranking, but I'm not sure how high. I think he's up maybe like number 9, something like that. Will they be able to make that for the WBO world title? Yeah, maybe. I mean, a lot of people I know love the Chisora fight. I'm not a particularly big fan because you're putting someone who is a slugger, a come to fight fighter who's got quite a low boxing IQ against probably pound for pound one of the best boxers with the highest boxing IQ on the planet. So for me, Chisora Usyk is a bit of a mismatch and a bit of a gross mismatch at that. Look, maybe I'm just not seeing what everyone else is seeing, but look, for me, I just don't. I don't see that. Anyway, I'm getting madly off topic here, so I'll be honest. I didn't have a script for this. I didn't have any points. I just sort of decided I'd go on a little bit of a ramble. So look, I'll close this off before I go too out of the out of the way and go into all sorts. So look, Andy Ruiz has lost to Anthony Joshua. Anthony Joshua is now a 2-time world champion. He marches on. Andy Ruiz now has to go back to the drawing board. So let me know what you thought of the fight, and take care.